This is part of our How to Handicap series, and we're going to be talking about how to handicap college basketball in the month of December. Now, VR, I've never really talked about December. We've done early season, but you're telling me, in your opinion, there's some really unique factors in December. Why don't you run down the
Huge
list?
changes right now. Biggest reason, college football is all but done. Now we got the bowl season, don't get me wrong, and the public loves the bowls, but the bottom line is that college football Saturday is over with. Because of that, you're getting a lot more recreational bettors, a lot more, your normal sports fan betting college basketball. Because of that, there's a different approach now in the market. Early on, what we saw a lot of, and I touched on it with my morning moves, is a lot of market manipulation by the wise guys.
All right, so let's quickly define. Give me an example of market manipulation.
I know I'm the only one that's going to bet the Northern Colorado game. And because I get respect at the sports book, I could lay -10 and know they're going to move it. Other sharps are going to lay 10.5, 11. And by game time, I could come back and take +14. And I could work middles all day.
Okay, now that seems to run, so let's clarify to some stuff we talk about a good bit, is if you're handicapping the game where you think the true line is 7.5, so you would take the 10. You're saying that your first bet as a respected face is going to move it to 10.5. But aren't you afraid at that point that the other wise guys that are also got a grade on that game are going to see the 10.5 and say, well, heck, there's value there. I've got it graded at 7.5 or 8.
Right. Well, then it's the other way around, too. I'm just saying as an example, laying 10 and then taking 14. You could grab the 10 and lay the 7.
Okay.
I'm not saying that's where the true line should be.
All right, but what I'm saying is when you make that first bet, it's because you want to buy it back later.
Correct.
All right, so the risk with that is always another wise guy might jump
in and hits
in
the other side, and that's why we saw a lot of that early on. If you go back and track some line movements, what you saw it going like this, because people with different opinions.
All right, so what you're saying is because the market is shallow, there's not a lot of public action, especially on the lesser games early.
More important, less confidence in the odds makers' numbers.
Right.
You're not seeing totals move 7, 8 points anymore.
Like
Early
you
in
were
the
even a
season,
month ago.
First week of the college basketball season, I saw totals move 10 points on a college basketball total. That's how off they were.
So the odds maker comes out with a number. He doesn't really know. He's not super confident. The book isn't. He puts out a number. A face comes up, bangs the favor. They overreact.
Quickly.
And
to stop others from jumping in on that same side. Reason being, there's not enough public money to help offset that. Now, when there's public money to offset that, the only danger they have is falling in the middle. All right. They don't want to get middle.
So let me recap though. All right, so I think I'm following you now well. Is they're overreacting because they're not confident in their numbers. The wise guys know that, so sometimes they're trying to manipulate the first moves for a buyback later, but then the challenge is other wise guys are beating them to the punch, and that's the dance they're doing, but now the public's starting to get involved.
And that's why more times than not, if you don't have a strong source that either moves steam or a bookmaker that takes, wise guy money that can tell you what side certain outfits are on, following early line movements can be extremely dangerous for sports bettors. More times than not, they find themselves on positions that the outfits aren't on at all, that a lot of these betting syndicates had no intentions of taking or have kept anything on.
Because of the initial market manipulation.
Exactly, and knowing from past experience, from bookmaking, early in the season, though, guys that thought they were sharper than they were are following those line movements and betting them. And, later, they're seeing the line come back the other way. They're paying vig to get off the game, more or less middling themselves. You could get in a lot of trouble early on thinking you're going to follow betting syndicates.
So one takeaway for next year, and we're always looking to learn for next year, is early in the college basketball season, the virgin moves early in the day, are the percentage of them that are fake outs are higher than normal.
Extremely.
All right, now the public's getting involved in mid-December.
The dynamics change. And more importantly, just like the wise guys have more data, the odds makers have more data. And let's tell it like it is. They do what they do because they're pretty good at it. They're not great at it, or else we wouldn't be betting into this market. It wouldn't be as inefficient as it is. But the bottom line is they are good at what they do.
True. And they get better as the 6 weeks of the season progresses.
And the more data they're able to gather. Fortunately for us, there is a lot of, unsophisticated bettors out there, and they have to factor that into their line. They start to sprinkle a little public perception into it.
All right,
because of that, we find value.
All right, so what we're saying is that there's this true line, which is going to split the result. There's a fair line that's going to split the action. Early in the year, when there's hardly any public action, the true line and the fair line are going to be very similar.
Exactly.
When the public starts to speak more, the odds maker is going to account more for the public, and the difference between the true and fair line is going to increase.
Correct. And now's the time of the year where those that do follow line moves can have a little more confidence that they are on the side of the wise guys when certain lines are moving. I think especially on those games that aren't marquee games, you could be pretty sure, the only problem is getting down too late, because we're seeing the sharper the number, the higher the tendency of the game's result falling near that number.
All right, so one comment, one question. So what I'm hearing is early in the college basketball season, you are able to win because your line is sharper than the odds makers. All right, they're trying to put out their best number because they're not worrying about the public. You're coming up with your best number. If you're better than them, you win. Later, the numbers get better for the odds makers, but what allows you to profit now is more that the public perception is off. It's being accounted for, so you can fade that.
It has to be, because the way you increase your client, which is the sportsbook's edge, is by knowing the tendency of your bettors. Like we say all the time, the recreational bettors prefer to bet favorite and over. So what do? You skew the line towards the favorite and the over. That helps increase, like they say, the hold on that the book's going to have long term.
And that's why the Super Bowl, which is the most public game of all, has the most public perception built into the line. All right, here's the question. Why? And I'm following you, but I'm not sure of this. Why is there less market manipulation now?
Because the lines are sharper.
Okay, so what you're saying is the wise guys would like to manipulate the market, but the books are not as susceptible.
Exactly.
The book's going to say, oh, you want to bet 5 dimes at this number? Great. We're not going to overreact.
Exactly. The opportunities are fewer and farther in between. And number 2, there's more of a balance. Once you get that recreational money into the pot, there's more of a balance. The more balance the book has, the less tendency for them to adjust the line. If I'm getting balanced action, I could take wise guy money and public money all day. I don't have to show respect to the wise guys or the public. Just let them keep coming in both sides.
So if the wise guys bet early on a anti-public side, they might be okay in the first half of the day having disproportionate action because they know the public's going to come in and balance their books.
Right, so there's not that rush to stop everyone from betting.
Wow, I just learned something. So there's 2 reasons that the books are not overreacting now when they would have a month ago. One is they're more confident in their lines. 2 is they know the public's going to step up and probably be looking on the other side as the wise guys, because the wise guys usually aren't playing public teams.
Exactly, and you see that in all sports. Knowing the tendency of your clients, knowing what they're going to come in on, so you don't have to run to adjust. But early in the season, when you don't have that, knowing the recreational money is going to come save you, you're going to over adjust. You want to stop other wise guys from coming in, so you are willing to move your total 10 points. But if I know the wise guys bet under in Duke, and I know when come close to game time, every square in the world is going to bet that Duke over, why would I move it 10 points? Why would I put myself in a position to get middle?
All right, so this reinforces something I say often. The more erratic lines are, the more beatable that sport is, because it means the bookies aren't sure of their line. And number 2 is the lower the limits are, the more beatable it is. So whenever you see something like NFL sides where the line doesn't move very much and the limits are really high, that's going to be a tougher line.
But if they're taking $300 on NBA totals, there's a reason for it.
I got to tell you, anything to close. Great concept.
I'm glad I have you to help explain. I don't articulate it as well.
No, that's the thing.
I lay it out there, but I need someone.
You're the inside. You're the mad scientist, and I'm the
lay
viewer.
Lay it out there so they can understand.
I'm like the viewer's advocate here.
Good thing we hang out long enough that you know what I'm saying.
Well, some people say I'm a little sharp too.
Yeah, of course. A little bit. You've been around long enough. You've been around me long enough now.
All right, now it's your turn to continue the conversation in the comment section with VR and myself. And we'll be back next week with more videos just like this. Remember, you can get all of our videos at pregame.tv.